The Houston Texans wrapped up their draft a while ago. Who did they take? Wide receiver Jaden Higgins from Iowa State in the second round, along with offensive lineman Aranti Ursary from Minnesota. They took Jalen Noel, a wide receiver from Iowa State. They took cornerback Jalen Smith from USC. They took running back Joe Quavius, also known as Woody Marks from USC. Safety Jalen Reed from Penn State. Quarterback Graham Mertz from Florida. Defensive lineman Keontae Hamilton from Rutgers, and tight end Luke Lachey from Iowa. I have no idea if any of these guys are going to be good or bad. I'm going to let them prove whether or not they belong in the National Football League. But there's a lot of people that put a lot of effort into the pre-draft process, mock drafts and all that stuff. There's also even more people who grade NFL drafts once they're done. No one actually ever grades them. So I'm about to grade the people who just graded the Houston Texans 2025 draft class in the same way that they are grading said draft class. Let's do it. I'm Paul Gallant, and this is the Gallant Says podcast.
A radio show host in Seattle called Paul Gallant.
Paul Gallant's wondering the same things a lot of people wonder.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
I was just kind of curious what Paul gets to say.
Are you kidding me? Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
Hello and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast. It is Thursday, May 8th of 2025, live on YouTube at Paul Gallant, on Twitch at Gallant Says, on X and Twitter at Gallant Says Pod. It's also on Instagram at Sports Gallant and on Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. You can catch this bad boy generally Monday through Friday around 4 p.m. Central Time. You can also catch it occasionally after major Houston sporting events. We came very close to launching this thing on time today. It's also available after the fact wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify as well. If you want to cut me off mid-thought, super chat me on YouTube or Twitch, and I'll play this.
Paul, stop talking. Listen.
But I will eventually get to your comments. If you're watching along right now, which you should, because I think I'm a lot more entertaining when you can see my face, my massive eyebrows, and my incredible, handsome, yet expressive facial expressions. You would notice that I'm wearing a graduation cap. I have no idea what these are called. And I'm also holding a ruler, a clear ruler. I got this when I graduated from Syracuse University in 2011. I wear it occasionally to make a point. Not a point about how I'm a big J journalist, how I'm a big deal. No, it has nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that at all. It's really to just be a goofball, because I realize that the industry that I work in is pretty dumb all the time. And I think it's especially at its worst when it comes to the NFL draft. The NFL draft is a very entertaining product to watch. And I understand the football addicts out there are dying for any kind of pre-draft content, any kind of NFL offseason content. Because everyone, for the most part, loves the NFL. It's the most popular sports league in the United States of America. And the offseason's a long one. The NFL does a really good job of making its offseason one that's got events just about every single month. February's the combine. March is free agency. April's the draft. May is when some off-season programs start and the schedule's released. June, there's a return to off-season stuff. July, training camp begins. August, also training camp. And then, of course, the fall. And the early winter, the regular season, the playoffs. I don't know how the draft became as big as it did, especially relative to the other sports leagues where the NBA draft, people care about who gets the number 1 overall pick. But baseball's draft, hockey's draft, no one really bats an eye at it. And the NFL draft, it's become this unbelievable event where so many people are going to Indianapolis to watch these guys run in shorts, jump up and down, do interviews, be exhausted for a couple of days. And they'll use that and the Senior Bowl and the regular season that these guys played in college to determine whether or not they will make it as pros. But it's a very inexact science. And a lot of people believe, whether they're an actual draft analyst, a blabber like myself, or you maybe sitting and watching this, it makes a lot of people believe that they know what will happen when these guys make it to the pros. Here's the reality. Everyone, including the experts, are talking out their ass about the NFL draft. I like to watch the NFL draft because as somebody who grew up playing football at a very low level in St. Petersburg, Florida, played every down of every game my senior year. But again, it was a small high school. So, I mean, what does that mean? But I loved football, and I was hoping that one day I would play in the National Football League. It took me way too long to realize that was never going to happen. Really too long. Probably should have figured that out going into my senior year, being 5'11", but 145 pounds or so. Again, it took me a long time to get there. But I like draft night because I get to see a bunch of young men realize the dream that I never got to. I actually get happy for these guys as they're hanging out with their family. They get the phone call. They tear up. Yeah. Hell, I teared up watching the movie Draft Day. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'm a man. Are you? Real men cry. Anyway. What I've always got a kick out of is that right after the draft is done, people put out draft grades. But these draft grades in recent years have become pussified. I remember back in 2012, the Seattle Seahawks, everyone was crushing the draft that John Schneider, then GM of the Seahawks, and head coach Pete Carroll put together. Because said draft was supposedly reaches in every single spot. And yet they come out of it with Bobby Wagner, maybe the best middle linebacker of the past 10 years or so. They get Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. The draft ended up being really good for them. And ever since that moment in time, everyone has become chicken shit when it comes to actually giving out hard grades in the NFL draft. So I thought to myself, let's take a look at the grades of the Houston Texans draft class from all the major websites, and we will grade them on whether or not they're actually being ballsy or if they're chicken shit and just giving a passing grade just because. This is the thing you will notice. Go look across NFL websites that cover the draft. Try to find grades of entire draft classes that are lower than a C-. You will be hard-pressed to find them. C-, that's passing in most schools, right? A C is considered satisfactory. And yet, you will see C's across the board. At worst, everyone's getting A's. Everyone's getting B's. Every draft class is going to work out? Are you fucking stupid? Some of these draft classes are going to be absolute abomination. It's going to be fucking terrible. We don't know which, because it's a crapshoot. Since it's such a crapshoot, I give a lot of general managers grace when it comes to this. You are rolling the dice, and you're hoping that you bring in guys that fit your program. But since certain players that you have on the board might get picked ahead of you, you got to always have that in mind. If there's somebody you really want, do you trade up and go get them? Like there's a lot of things that go to it where I don't crush general managers for maybe not doing so well in the draft class. It's really hard to do. I think Nick Caserio, general manager of the Texans, has done a really good job in the draft. Take a look at who he's brought in. Derek Stingley might be the best corner in the NFL right now. Kamari Lassiter, 2nd round pick. He's a starter right out of the chute. Nico Collins was a 3rd round pick. CJ Stroud, Will Anderson. You've gotten a lot out of Jalen Petrie to this moment in time. Christian Harris, I liked him as a mid-round pick. Dameon Pierce looked good his first couple of years. Obviously, maybe not a scheme fit for what the Texans were trying to do last year. There's a lot. They got a lot. They've gotten a lot under Nick Cassarian. Sure, there's been some misses like Kenyon Green. We'll see with Juice Scruggs. We'll see with Blake Fisher. But I think he's done a pretty good job. So I sit back and, I think you should wait to let these guys prove whether or not they belong in the NFL, but people with these grades out. So anyway, let's start grading draft grades. Let's go to ESPN.com. Mel Kiper, for all the bitching and moaning and crying he did about Chador Sanders falling all the way to the 5th round in the NFL draft, did you know that the lowest grade he gave for anybody's draft was a C, and he only gave it to 2 teams? A C, just to the Panthers and the Falcons. Kipes railroad all the people who kept on passing on Chador Sanders. If you're going to have that energy on TV, let's see it in writing, right? He gave the Texans a B+. Here's what he wrote. Stroud took a step back last season, which is why the theme of Houston's draft always had to be getting him more support. He mentions the missing time that Texans receivers had this past season. Crazy to remember that Nico Collins missed 8 games. Stephon Diggs missed 10. Tank Dell 3. Damn, I didn't remember Nico missing 8 games. Diggs obviously tore his ACL midseason. Tank Dell destroyed all the ligaments in his knee against the Chiefs. Stroud was also sacked 52 times, second most in the NFL behind a poor offensive line. Houston retooled the unit in free agency. Did they? But I'm not sure anyone would say it absolutely improved it. I agree with that. Laramie Tunsil, Kenyon Green, Shaq Mason out. Cam Robinson, Eddie Ingram, Laken Tomlinson in. You get the point. It's the reason my top needs for the Texans all came on offense. And he says that I liked Jaden Higgins, 6'4", explosion outside. Jalen Noel, speed after the catch burst to the slot. Arianti Ursary could develop into a starting left tackle, but won't be a starting tackle right away. The one reach is Jalen Smith, their cornerback 25. There's upside to him. No guard here, but the Houston did the most important thing for its draft, improve the offense around Stroud. So look, as far as the actual grade goes, would I give the Texans a B+? I don't know if I go that far. I feel like it's a B, maybe a B-. But again, since I don't know anything that's going to happen with any of these players, I have to remember that and say, yeah, I get why they did what they did. I don't know if it works out. But Kiper, who spent the entire draft whining about Chador Sanders falling, giving only 2 C's out as his low grade, unbelievable. So I'm going to give Mel Kiper a D. Did I break anything with that? That was my ruler. I was smacking it on the table. Up next, who we got? NFL.com. The Texans got an A- from NFL.com. This shouldn't be that surprising. The lowest grade that NFL.com gave out to any teams were a B-, yes, for the Panthers, Bengals, and Saints. That's the low grade. A B- is an 80 to 83. I always thought that anything in the B range was good. Could be better, but it's better than satisfactory. B- for all 32 NFL teams, including the Falcons, who apparently had a higher grade than a B-. As far as the Texans draft grades, day 1 grade, A. Day 2 grade, A+. They got a day 1 grade of A. They traded out of the first round. What are you grading? Nothing happened. The Texans did well to add 2 more Iowa State Cyclones to the receiver room, with Higgins and Noel joining former teammate Xavier Hutchinson to support C.J. Stroud. I thought they might take Ursary in the first round, so the trade-up for him in round 2 made sense, as did the swap that led to the acquisition of the versatile and tough Jalen Smith in round 3. Marks is not just a strong runner, but can be another target for Stroud as a receiver. We'll see if patience would have him been wiser, giving up a 3rd-round pick next year to move into round 4 for him. Mertz has some positive attributes, Graham Mertz, quarterback, but was inconsistent and suffered injuries. Hamilton meets a need for young depth at tackle, and Lachey lost a step due to injury, but could prove to have been a steal in the 7th. I will say this. You draft the tight end out of Iowa, you're probably doing okay. No? But what am I going to give as a grade for this? F! F! The lowest grade you gave to anybody in the draft was a B-. Good God. Pro Football Focus. I'll give Pro Football Focus credit for this. Pro Football Focus wrote a paragraph for every single Houston Texans draft pick. However, the lowest grade, and there was only one of them that they gave out, was a D to the San Francisco 49ers. I am not going to spare you reading through the entirety of the write-up on every single prospect, okay? You don't want that. You don't need that. But giving them a B, it is kind of lame, no? Did anyone have the stones to give them a C? Anyone? Anyone? So let's move to Pete Prisco. Pete Prisco is one of the most opinionated pundits there is when it comes to football. I enjoy him. He has massive calves. Use that information how you will. Pete Prisco gave the Texans a C+. All right. Now, that's a little chutzpah. It's just above satisfactory, considering they only drafted one offensive lineman and 2 wide receivers for a team that allowed C.J. Stroud to get sacked as much as they did. Like, that actually makes sense. But the lowest grade that Pete Prisco gave out was a C-. So the Detroit Lions. Pete, bro, I know you have takes. No one got an F? No one got a D? What are we doing? Pete Prisco, I'm disappointed in you, but since you're one of the teacher's favorites, you're going to get a C-. CBS Sports, they gave the Houston Texans a C+. Someone named Chris Trapasso put this together. The lowest grade for CBS Sports were the 49ers and Panthers. Both got a C. So the lowest graded drafts got C's. What are we doing? This is CBSSports.com. Come on. Columbia Broadcasting, whatever the S stands for. Station or something. I don't know. That's the lowest? That's it? Come on. F. The Ringer. The Ringer gave the Texans a B. The lowest grade they gave was a C as well. What are we doing? Can we sack up? Can we sack up? They gave a C at least to multiple teams, not just 2. The Falcons, Ravens, Bengals, Vikings, and Chargers. But they gave the Texans a B. I like the Texans look to bolster their pass-catching group in this draft, adding more playmaking talent around quarterback C.J. Stroud. Houston grabbed a pair of Iowa State pass catchers, taking Jaden Higgins in the 2nd round and Jalen Noel in the 3rd. Higgins has excellent size and ball-winning skills and perfectly complements Nico Collins as a Z receiver who can move around the formation. Noel, meanwhile, an excellent long-term slot option offering blazing speed to create big plays up the seam. It is pretty funny that Iowa State has as much explosiveness as they do when they are the second fiddle in their state to Iowa, which is like the slow, plodding, boring-ass offense. Who else has graded the Houston Texans? I will give... That is true, Brandon Hallam. CBS was funny. We liked what the Texans did here. We really liked what the Texans did here. C+. Yeah, fair point. Fair point. Did I just do... What did I do? I just did the Ringer, right? The Ringer gave him a B. The Ringer, I like that, blah, 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 blah. Okay, sorry. We're losing track because there's so many notes in front of me. And sometimes I forget what I read already. The Athletic. This is the ballsiest publication when it comes to grading the NFL draft. But there was no write-up. They created some sort of metric system that grades draft picks on a relative scale. Methodology includes assigning value to each draft slot and each prospect picked, as well as the value of the position the prospect plays, and coming up with a composite value which is represented by a grade. Shout out to The Athletic for at least putting a little more effort into this. And they gave the Houston Texans a C. Satisfactory. Here are the low grades that they gave. They gave the 49ers a D+. They gave the Bills, Jets, and Raiders and Rams a D. They gave the Bengals, Broncos, and Chargers and Vikings a D-. And they gave an F to the Dolphins, Jaguars, Saints, and Lions. That's what you're supposed to do. Actually grade it the way that you would grade a class. Not giving everybody a passing grade or above. That's what you're supposed to do. And they did it with a formula, no less. The Athletic gets an A. Balls. Will they be right about the Texans? No. They just graded based off of the value of each draft slot, the value of each prospect picked, which I'm sure they determined based off of mock drafts, as well as the value of the position the prospect plays. Like, they put some effort into this. Maybe it was artificial intelligence enhanced, but this is by far the best one. None of them are even close. Let's keep on grading Houston Texans draft grades. Bleacher Report gave the Texans a B+. All right. The lowest grade that they gave out to anybody was a D+, the New Orleans Saints. Houston got a quality receiver prospect early, day 2. Iowa State's Jaden Higgins is a big possession receiver who should add a new dynamic to the receiving core. Higgins will also help the Texans replace the departed Stephon Diggs and give C.J. Stroud a reliable target as Tank Dell recovers from the devastating knee injury he suffered in Week 16. He and third-round pick and former teammate Jalen Noel should stabilize the Houston Texans receiver depth this season. They got themselves a tackle if they're trading up in round 2 to secure Minnesota's Ariante Ursery. All right, so that's all you wrote, and you give him a B+. Well, why do you like him? Ursery was the top-ranked tackle remaining. He should provide much-needed depth right away. Could develop into a long-term starter. Okay, we did eventually get there. It would have been nice to see Houston invest a little more into its offensive line. However, the Texans did a good job of addressing most of its major needs while further building the foundation of a young, dynamic receiving core that can grow alongside Stroud for the foreseeable future. Okay, they could have invested a little more into the offensive line. They addressed most of their major needs. How is that a B+? That sounds like a C+. What's next? The Associated Press. Associated Press gave the Houston Texans draft class a B. Lowest grade that they gave out to anybody was a C+ to the Saints. Again, this is some chicken shit grading, guys. Sack the fuck up. The lowest grade's a C+, and just one team got lower than a B-? What the fuck? More from the Associated Press. Traded out of the first round. Got wide receiver Jaden Higgins to pair with Nico Collins. Left tackle Ariante Ursery has plenty of upside. You can say that about every fucking player in the draft and should be an immediate upgrade on a rebuilt line. Got another playmaker for C.J. Stroud in the third round, taking Jalen Noel. Jalen Smith wasn't expected to go this high. Okay. Then punish them for that? Neither was Woody Marks. Jalen Reed is good value. Graham Mertz has backup potential. I mean, these sentences are less than 10 words, all of them, and you gave him a B? Why does Ariante Ursery have plenty of upside? Like, every player in the draft theoretically has upside. Fuck off. F- for the Associated Press. By the way, while I was looking up the Associated Press was asking me for money. Please consider donating. Please consider me never going to your website until next year when we repeat this exercise. How about that? Yahoo gave the Houston Texans a B. That's not bad, right? The lowest grade that they gave out was a C-, just one, to the Atlanta Falcons. Here's why. The Texans needed pass catchers and another offensive lineman, and that's exactly what they attacked day 2 of the draft that they're moving out of the first round. Blah, 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 blah. The most interesting pick, Ariante Ursery. He's a big athlete with plenty of starts under his belt. Ursery is an easy mover who still needs work on playing with consistent technique and adding to his strength, but he's big and can recover with blind feet and flash some really nice blocks on the backside of runs. Yeah. Fox Sports, they're next. The lowest grade they gave, D+ to the Miami Dolphins. They gave the Texans a B+. Sure, it was frustrating for Texans fans to watch the first day of the draft come and go without a pick being made, but GM Nick Casario's patience will be rewarded next year, with Houston now owning 2 first-round selections in a class expected to be much richer than this one. And let's be real, that 2026 New York Giants pick could be a high one. Even better, Casario put together an intriguing class this year. Blah, 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 blah. Again, the B+. If it was frustrating for Texas fans to wait day 1, then shouldn't that work against them? Fox Sports, we're going to give them a C-. I have a ruler. That's the ruler in the background. Sharp Football gave the Houston Texans a B+. Not a lot of work put into this one, though. Instant impact, Jaden Higgins. Best value, Ariante Ursary. Riskiest pick, Jalen Smith. Houston traded out of the first round, but only back to number 34 while adding 2 third-round picks. I appreciate Houston's willingness to double up on wide receiver to support C.J. Stroud. That's it. That's the whole thing. And they give him a B+. B+? Lowest grade you gave was a D? F! What else do we have here? WalterFootball. You know what? I'll give this to WalterFootball because WalterFootball, they did give a lot of rather mid grades out. They didn't have the stones to fail someone, you know? They didn't have the stones to give them the old F. But they did give a grade that is basically an F, and I just love how creative it was. WalterFootball gave the Texans a B. The lowest grade that they gave was to the Atlanta Falcons, whose they gave Matt Millen. For those who don't remember, Matt Millen was a disaster of a GM for the Detroit Lions back in the day. Matt Millen, still kicking it. What's he doing now? Is he still in the NFL in any way, shape, or form? He was president and CEO of the Lions from 2001 to 2008. So he's been out of the game for a while. Has he been back at all? By the way, Matt Millen once punched the owner of the Patriots in the face. Pretty awesome, huh? Like Howie Long was getting into it with Patriots general manager Patrick Sullivan. He punched him in the face. Sullivan said the punch made him see stars that required stitches. Millen later called the incident a good hit. So Matt Millen was pretty good as a Raider. Also, April 24th, 2010, at the NFL draft in Manhattan, Millen referred to fellow ESPN commentator Ron Jaworski as a Pollock, after which he made an on-air apologies, stating that he didn't mean anything by the remark. Jesus. Anyway, so there you go. WalterFootball, they get an A because one of the draft's grades that they give out was Millen. However, they were not very harsh with their grading. So what did we learn today, guys? What did we learn today? That hat was itchy as fuck. This should be further proof that pre-draft conversation and immediate post-draft conversation is completely hollow, void of anything that you can take away and use going forward nuggets when it comes to what you saw during the draft. It's just a heaping load of filler content that honestly is the equivalent of extremely cut drugs. Not that I do any, but I understand that some folks cut drugs because the material that they're trying to sell, they want to sell to as many people as possible. Little flour, little baking soda, little baby powder, et cetera, et cetera. You know what we're doing here. We're trying to make more out of less. Pre-draft content, post-draft content is the epitome of this. And if people are going to stay doing it, I only have one request. Stop being a bunch of pussies when it comes to giving out grades. Actually give out grades for teams that you think did poorly in the draft that are less than a C. C is satisfactory. B is good. A is awesome. D, not good. F, failure. If you don't like a draft, have the stones to put the label on it instead of this mealy-mouthed bullshit. Draft grades are dumb. Pre-draft conversation is dumb. Mock drafts are dumb. All draft coverage for the most part is dumb, as is the NFL draft having the status that it holds during the NFL's offseason. It shouldn't have that big of one. So, if you are one of these people that's part of the draft industrial complex and you feel the need to put out draft grades, at the very least have some fucking balls and do tough grading instead of this participation trophy non-private school shit that y'all are doing. Paul, were you going to private schools your whole life? Yes. I'm a little bougie elitist ass. I know that. You know that. So why can't these graders be better at that? Someone's got to hold them accountable. I'm the one to do it every single year. So there you go. It's the Paul Gallant podcast, not the Paul Gallant show. Paul Gallant show. You can catch noon to 3, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. Appreciate everybody for tuning into this edition of the Gallant Says podcast. Let's read some comments before we get out of here. Brandon Halam says, Mel Kiper, grade certified weirdo. He's proof that some turds float to the top. I have no issue with Mel Kiper. I think that Mel Kiper is entertaining. I do not know how much value his draft expertise still holds. I think he used to put in a lot of work, and I think like a lot of guys, he still puts in some work, but he knows how the game is played. You put those mock drafts out, you change it up a little bit, and all of a sudden people are going to freak out when you change the top quarterback on the board. I think that he made the draft coverage a little bit more entertaining by constantly whining about Chador Sanders falling. But if you thought that Chador Sanders falling as far as he did was a travesty, then actually give people harsh grades for passing on him, especially if they needed a quarterback. Skunk and Munch on X comments, I'm excited for this season. Think it was a good draft this year. I think it was too. You know why? Because I trust Nick Caserio. Call me crazy for doing it, but I think that he's taken this organization on a pretty good path thus far. Texas Tangent says he enjoys that I said pussified. Thanks. Not everyone likes it when I say that word. Yeah, maybe I should do that instead. Also says bunch of bitch grades this year. 75 Courtchester says make a margarita on air, Paulie. No. It's a school night. We're behaving. Brandon Halam, CBS was funny. We really liked what the Texans did here. Gave them a C+. That is funny. EDF 1919 compliments the Athletic. Hell yeah, Athletic. Don't appease, called how it is. Especially if I'm subscribing to you. I mean, I wonder what the Houston Chronicle gave out as a grade. Do you know what I'm paying for the Houston Chronicle a month? It's like $16 a month. The Athletic, meanwhile, it's like $70 for the whole year. And the Athletic actually had the balls to give out, in terms of draft grades, 1 D+, 4 Ds, 4 D minuses, and 4 Fs. I mean, good googly moogly. That's impressive. That's very, very impressive. My friend DJ Bien-Aimé of ESPN has joined the mix on the Instagram side of things, at Sports Gallant. He says, go Celtics, exclamation point, question mark. Sorry, Celtics. Well, listen, DJ, I know your Heat culture has, died by falling off of a cliff. It happens to the best of us. Although, they could have won a championship, huh? I guess not. Here's what I have to say about my beloved Boston Celtics being down 2-0 to the New Jersey Nets. We are a game away from it being a series. That's it. We are a game away from Celtics Nets being a series. Because they're playing the Nets, right? Honestly, I don't know. I haven't watched the first 2 games, and I don't really feel the need to watch the first game or the second game. But now maybe I will actually watch the third game. That's the most concern I will show about the Celtics to this point. DJ also says, I joined another flag league. This team stinks. Would I actually get on the field on this team? Would I actually get on the field instead of like getting 1 play of offense? That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. Got to say, our last team, at least in the league that we were in, was not very good either. 75 Courtchester says, Pope Bob has better footwork in the pocket than Chador Sanders. Hey. Chador Sanders has perfect footwork in the pocket, per Mel Kiper Jr. Perfect footwork for a 5th-round draft pick in the pocket. Let's go. G says Knicks. What are those? Sounds like a slur. Don't say that. The Knicks? Who are they? Do they matter? What are they? Let me look this up. I've never heard this term before. Knicks. Huh. New York Knickerbockers. Shortened and more commonly referred to as the New York Knicks, are an American professional basketball team based in the New York City borough of Manhattan. The Knicks compete in the National Basketball Association as a member of the Atlantic Division of the Eastern Conference. Who the fuck are them? Who are they? Who are the Knicks? I've never heard of them before. Are they good? Bad? Huh. G says, oh, the Nets are in Brooklyn now. They are? What? I'm kidding. I hope you guys could tell that I was being sarcastic there. The New Jersey Nets are the only team from the tri-state area, basketball-wise, that I've ever been scared of as a Celtics fan. Back in 02, 03 or so, when they had Jason Kidd and they had Kenyon Martin and they had Richard Jefferson and Kerry Kittles. God, Kerry Kittles is so fucking annoying. Who's that other guy that they had? 2002 New Jersey Nets. There's this other guy they had. Oh, he's so obnoxious. Because this team made it all the way to the finals. And let's see. Lucius Harris. Ugh. They had Dikembe Mutombo. Didn't know that. Interesting. But yeah, I was scared of those Nets teams. The Knicks have never once in my life been a threat. But right now, yeah, here we go. DJ Bename talking about the flag football team that I theoretically could join. We've faced the competition we faced yesterday. Couldn't win a game against middle schoolers. Damn, that's not good. That's not good. G asks, what's your take on Chador Sanders? I mean, 5th round. I get that, like, you don't want a backup quarterback that's chirpy. That's always going to be the story when the starter struggles. But, I mean, look at the Browns QB room. Joe Flacco, last time we saw him didn't look good. Kenny Pickett. Dylan Gabriel, who I think we'd all agree Sanders is better than, even if was better than him in college. I know he was playing on a really good Oregon team. But Sanders falling that far blew my mind. And maybe he is that much of maybe he was that much of an asshole, as was referred to on in some of those like anonymous pre-draft interviews and stuff. But yeah, I think it's crazy he fell that far. Did it merit the energy Mel Kiper had the whole draft through? I don't know, but I will say this, and it was funny to laugh at it. I think I saw a bunch of people posting today that Mel Kiper was pissed off that Chador Sanders wasn't picked as the Pope. I'll give Kiper this. Kiper at least found something to make entertaining the last couple of rounds of the draft. Because day one's the important day. That Chador Sanders fell all the way out of the first round of the draft is crazy. That he fell all the way out of the second and third round of the draft on Friday is also pretty wild to me. Like, I know there's a lot of people that are saying, like, well, that's just how he was graded. Sure, but everyone graded him higher than that. No one was grading him as the first overall pick, but, I mean, first or second round, that's as far as I thought he would go. Supposedly, Quinn Ewers, the reason that he fell as far as he did is because they were like, he's too famous to be a clipboard holder, which is, again, bizarre logic. I think he's in a great spot in Miami for DJ's Dolphins. So we will see how he does. But, I mean, I feel pretty good if I'm Chador Sanders in Cleveland. Deshaun Watson's never going to play again. Joe Flacco, I think that the lightning he caught in a bottle at the end of the, what's going on the screen right there? At the end of the 2023 season, I think that's gone. Kenny Pickett, this is his third team now. Kind of bizarre. EDF 1919 asks, who the hell is Mel Kiper anyway? So Mel Kiper, for those who don't know, is an NFL draft expert for ESPN. What was his background? Kiper has been obsessed with the NFL draft since he was in high school. So he was putting together draft reports while he was still a student in high school. He said he approached Baltimore Colts assistant general manager Ernie Accorsi with draft reports while still a student in high school. Accorsi told him that there was a market for draft information and suggested that Kiper convert his analysis into a business. The original contract he signed with ESPN in 1984 was for $400. Damn, he's been doing that for 32 years. Kiper and fellow draft analyst Todd McShay were often featured together and compared their mock drafts on ESPN programs. Kiper compiles a big board on which he ranks his top 25 players every week. If you ever have gone back and watched film where in the 1994 NFL draft, he butted heads with Colts GM Bill Tobin. Kiper, unknown as an analyst, derided the Colts for passing on Trent Dilfer after trading up to the 5th pick, Tobin retorted in an interview, "Who the hell is Mel Kiper?" and noted that Kiper has never put on a jockstrap. Kiper also remarked at the draft that the Colts were the laughingstock of the league year in and year out, which he bemused Chris Berman noted as marking a day which will live in infamy. Tobin passed away, I guess, last year. Kiper offered condolences on social media. Kiper has sustained heavy criticism for the low accuracy of his predictions. Listen, the guy's entertaining. But does that give him, I guess, credibility? Probably not. And EDF 1919 says he had no background. That's why Bill Tobin got so mad. But Bill Tobin wasn't doing so well as the Colts GM. And it wasn't that much later that he was out of a job. Colts were pretty bad. They had that year in 95 where Jim Harbaugh and the Colts somehow made it to the AFC Championship game. But 96 and in 97, they were god-awful. They were a terrible football team those 2 years. Harbaugh was still under center for both. Then they drafted Peyton Manning in 1998 and everything changed, you know? So it's not that Kiper was necessarily wrong. Kiper is honestly the reason that the draft industrial complex is what it is. And again, I got no beef with him. I find him to be entertaining. I do. I mean, the guy's even got like Frank Caliendo doing impressions of him. And good for him cornering a market and monetizing it. But he's definitely more of an entertainer, I think, at this moment in time. And I think he knows exactly what he's doing with his mock drafts, where he'll have one guy at the top. And then as we get closer and closer to the draft, he'll shift things around, because that shifting things around, it kind of boggles everyone's minds. Anyway, guys, that is going to wrap up today's edition of the Gallant Says podcast, which is live on YouTube at Paul Gallant. If you haven't already, like this video and subscribe to my channel on Twitch at Gallant Says. Give me a sub on that if you're more of a Twitcher. It's on X and on Twitter at Gallant Says. That's where you can see most of my written thoughts. It's on Instagram at Sports Gallant. Give me a follow. And Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. Like my page. You can generally catch it weekdays around 4 p.m. Central Time, also occasionally after major Houston sporting events. We'll see if tomorrow on Friday I actually get this thing started at 4 p.m. Central Time. We got close today. It's also available wherever you get your podcasts. So if you haven't already, subscribe, rate, and review me on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. If you roast my ass, I will read it. Until Friday, 4 p.m. So long, farewell, and have yourselves a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Peace!